We finally binged all 8 of the Harry Potter movies, and while they're great, there's no way they will ever compare to the world of Middle-earth. Still, we've got a lot to discuss after we drink a butterbeer. That's all next. This is Tatooine Sons.
Hey guys, this is Ashley Cox from Fangirling Over Jesus. At FOJ, we believe in hope and light in the darkness and that you are not alone. We seek to unite and celebrate the intersection of the gospel and our favorite fandoms, and we get to do this through our social media, our podcast devotional, and our cosplay and fashion. And you can find links to all of that through our website, www.fangirlingoverjesus.com, through our social media at Fangirlingoverjesus, wherever you get your podcasts, and on Etsy. See you online.
It's true. All of it.
What is the name of the porg on the Millennium Falcon?
Force is strong in my family.
What do you think his name is? It's a big moment.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Maybe Turbis?
Do or do not. There is no try.
Turbis? Pablo, if you're listening to this live stream, that porg's name is now Turbis. It's a good Star Wars name.
We're not done yet.
These guys recorded an awesome podcast called Tatooine Sons. Everybody was lit.
Let's see, what are we doing next week right now at this moment as we record this?
We don't know yet.
Yeah, we're doing it's Hollywood Studios.
Yeah.
It's
That's right. Hopefully
the dinner.
We'll be in
and
Hollywood
the
Studios,
Fantasmic.
but yeah, hopefully it doesn't get rained out.
That'll be cool.
Yeah.
And then, of course, since we are annual pass holders, we're pretty fortunate.
We are.
Yeah, we are.
When we sit here and when I think about the fact that we're annual pass holders for Walt Disney World and Universal Studios in Florida, and we're going to take advantage of both of those next week, that's pretty freaking phenomenal.
It is.
But,
Incredible.
We've been to both now, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I'll start with you, BB Nate. How do you compare the two? Do you compare? What are your thoughts on the comparisons between Walt Disney World and Universal
The
Studios?
theming for Disney World, just in general, has a better feeling. It just feels more professional and fun. But the rides at Universal are really good, and the shows. I mean, that Bourne Stuntacular is fantastic. It's the best show I've seen at either Universal or Walt Disney World. Mm-hmm. So there's pluses to both, but overall, I mean, it's just both of them are a ton of fun. That's really
Absolutely. What about you, Sam?
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to echo that largely. Disney, it has the nostalgia. It has the theming. I mean, sure, the rides aren't as big of a
Disney,
thrill ride, but
right?
it's Disney, right? The whole environment's different. I mean, down to even how the cast members are and just how restaurants are themed and stuff. But Universal has its own benefits. It's got IPs that you don't get anywhere else, like Jurassic Park, Harry Potter, Transformers. It's got the thrill rides, and there's no debating that it has some of the best thrill rides. But I think there's just something special about Disney that keeps us going back.
You a Disney guy or a Universal guy, Nathan?
It depends on the day.
Okay, what about
That's
you, Sam?
fair. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think I'm a Disney guy, but I do like
Overall.
Yeah,
I'm a Disney guy too, but I enjoy Universal Studios. But there's a reason we're going to spend 4 days,
right?
5 days at Disney, and 1 day at Universal, because you can pretty much get all the fun stuff that you want to get out at Universal in 1 day. And it's a different experience just hanging out at Walt Disney World. So Magic Kingdom, and we're going to do Tron.
Heck yeah,
Guardians of the Galaxy, all that stuff. So it's going to be pretty awesome. Well, welcome to Tatooine Sons, a pop culture podcast. We believe that pop culture is the mythology of this generation, that there is a story, it is written on our souls, and that these myths speak to that story. And that is why in this episode, we are talking about Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Crazy to think of. That we had never seen any of the Harry Potter movies, never read any of the books.
Nothing.
We were watching Deathly Hallows, both parts 1 and 2 yesterday, as we finished out Mother's Day, because we're recording on Monday. But as we were watching those, I posted a picture of our dog Rex, named after Captain Rex. Don't tell Mom that.
She thinks it's Rex from Toy Story.
She does. But he was staring at Harry Potter on screen, and Cam Ray commented on the picture, and he's like, wait till he sees when when Weasley dies, when Ron Weasley dies. And I was like, you best be joking, sir. Right? And he replied back and he's like, what, you've read the books, right? And I did respond. And then he sent the gif of Padme from Attack of the Clones with Anakin going, and he's like, you read the books, right? So, no. We had not.
No, we have not.
Nope. In fact, we read, it's ironic. We were talking about Universal, but we got probably the greatest exposure before watching these movies.
Was from the rides.
It was. So what are the two rides there? There's
Forbidden Journey and
Hagrid's
Motorbike Adventure.
The Hagrid's Motorbike Adventure.
I feel like there's another one, but
there's like a little kiddie one.
We did the kiddie one too.
The hippogriff thing.
Hippogriff, yeah.
It was fine, but
yeah.
Largely, what prompted us watching the movies was going to Universal and seeing Harry Potter world and stuff. And you're like, this is cool,
the Wizarding World of Harry Potter.
But like, we want to know what the heck's going on, so we decided to watch the movies.
We've been binge watching it. So I'm going to start with you, Sam. I want to get your thoughts on the Harry Potter film franchise. Now, we have not watched any Fantastic Beasts. I'm not sure if we're going to go down that road with it. But your thoughts on the Harry Potter series of 8 films in 60 seconds. Go.
Oh, geez. They were great, or they were really good. I enjoyed them. They had, great moments to them. But overall, I think my outlook on them is hampered by I didn't grow up with the series like many people did, either reading the books or watching the movies as they came out, because these movies would have been coming out as I was growing up.
Well, and you were really little, both of you, when they first started coming out.
Yeah,
I mean, the first one came out in 2001,
right? So you were I would have been too young to watch them when they came out.
Yeah,
and we never got into them. So,
but they were great. There's just certain aspects of it that don't appeal to me personally that much, such as kind of the schoolhouse drama aspect of it, who's gonna snog who or whatever, that's what they called it, right?
Yeah, snogging.
That side of things just, it kind of grates on me after a little while. But the story itself was interesting. I liked a lot of the characters. Harry Potter, Ron Weasley, Hermione were great. I loved Snape. I don't know why.
Snape was
he was just a cool character, fun character. But it definitely did not dethrone Lord of the Rings for me. Okay. I'll say that much.
All right. Fair enough. BB Nate, your thoughts on Harry Potter as a film franchise in 60 seconds. Go.
It's good. I mean, it has the merits of what you want from a good film franchise. An overarching story that you get into and you wonder what's going to happen next, and you want to get to the end to be able to see what characters make it out alive or not, and if they beat the bad guy. And over 8 movies, you feel all that, and it's great. But honestly, that's all I can really say. The movies were good, but Sammy said, we don't have any connection with it from growing up with it, and so we've already can agree we've seen the best fantasy series there is with Lord of the Rings, and there's no denying that. Lord of the Rings is the basis of all fantasy, and it perfected it first try, basically, and nothing will beat it. And so with Harry Potter, it did something different. It added kind of that fantasy aspect into our modern world, and that's interesting. They didn't really touch on that outside of the beginning and ends of each movie, though, and so other than that, there isn't much uniqueness to it from the outside of the school portion. Voldemort seems to be a great villain. If we saw him more, I was a little bit disappointed how little we saw him actually in the movies. We saw him show up a lot in the 5th one. He showed up for a few minutes at the end of the 4th. Showed up a lot in the 5th one. The 6th one, I don't remember him being in much at all. And then, of course, Deathly Hallows and that kind of stuff. He wasn't even in 7 all that much, part 1. But he was, of course, in a lot of 8. But even at that point, he was in it for the last hour, maybe. And so, for the big villain, there wasn't much of him on screen at that time. Well, with Darth Vader, take him, for example.
He's not on screen very much at all in A New Hope.
Not in A New Hope, but when you're taking in the account of the original trilogy, he's prevalent in the story.
I mean, one could argue though that Sauron doesn't show up hardly at all. He's just just has little influences here and there whenever the ring's taking effect. Otherwise, he doesn't even really show up as a character.
But Sauron isn't the bad guy.
How is he not the bad guy?
No, not the villain of the movies. the villain of the movies is Mordor, and it is the Ring, and Sauron's just the creator of all of that.
That's an interesting take.
I 100% think that it's Mordor in the Ring, because we go from it. You can't say that Sauron's a bad guy, but where does Saruman fit in there? In that
Bad
case,
guy?
he's
interesting,
but he's not the main bad guy.
So you're of the opinion that Sauron is a secondary villain in the
I think Sauron.
That's a whole nother episode to discuss.
Sauron is the mastermind, but I don't feel like he's the villain of Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Well, it's like the Emperor,
exactly
in your mindset. Okay,
all right. So I would say that the way I judge an epic film franchise is not watchability, which this one had great watchability. It's rewatchability.
Yes.
Yep. And when we finished up last night, I was like, all right, that's fine. But I have no desire to go back and rewatch it.
No, I might watch the 5th one again.
Yeah.
But other than that's probably it.
Okay. Well, then that may answer the next question. I'll start with you, BB Nate, since you kind of went there. But which is your favorite Harry Potter film? But more so, since you've pretty much revealed why.
Well, it's a 1A, 1B, but I'm leaning more towards the 5th one, The Order of the Phoenix. I really thought that was just had the most mystery in it. It still had, the Hogwarts school stuff, which is really what you're kind of going to this film franchise for, the Hogwarts and everything. It had that, but it also had the intrigue of bringing in new characters, bringing in the lady in pink. I don't remember her name. I hated her.
I think
I really did. And all of the times I'd ever seen her in anything, having not watched a half a second of this series,
right?
I really truly believed that she was playing Queen Elizabeth. I thought that's who that was.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, good to know. Yeah. But
anyway.
And I mean she was so frustrating, and she changed the way that Hogwarts was and was changing everything. And so you had that aspect, but you also had the Voldemort aspect finally coming into play more and more. And is he infiltrating the Ministry of Magic? And how far does his reach go? And is Snape involved, and Draco, and all this stuff? There was a lot going on. And then you had the awesome final 30 minutes with an amazing wizard battle that take place between the Order of the Phoenix and the Death Eaters, and then you have a duel between Voldemort and Dumbledore, which was an awesome duel, cooler than the one at the end of the series between Harry Potter and Voldemort.
Easily.
That lasted 2 minutes, and it was kind of lame, but compared to the one between Voldemort and Dumbledore, that was just awesome. And then you have this kind of sense of, oh, this is where the turning point is for the series. And so it just felt like the most impactful movie from out of all of them. And I don't know why it has the lowest rating.
It's not. It's one of the lowest rated ones of all of the series.
Yeah.
It felt the most Star Wars of
It
all
did
of
honestly
them.
feel like the most Star Wars. Yes, it did. But maybe that's why we enjoyed it so much.
Maybe. Samuel the Hutt, your favorite Harry Potter film, and why?
Yeah, mine's definitely 5, and largely just because of the last bit. I mean, the first bit was fine. I think it's sullied for me because I just hated the pink chick. She was annoying, and you're supposed to hate her. I know, it's that kind of love to hate her thing, right? But the movie, you're right, Nate. It had that mystery, we know Voldemort's around, but everybody else is trying to cover it up for whatever reason.
Yeah, and they're all blaming Harry Potter.
Yeah. So that was a really interesting story. But yeah, I mean, come on, the end was awesome between Dumbledore and Voldemort. When I saw that whole duel, right, the duel between the Death Eaters and the Order of the Phoenix, and then like you said, Dumbledore and Voldemort, I was like, man, I can't imagine what this stuff's going to be like in the last movie. If this is what we're getting in episode 5 or in the 5th
episode 5.
Yeah, sorry. In the 5th movie, I can't imagine.
Take the sky out of the Star Wars, but you can't take the Star Wars out of the guy. So.
But I was really anticipating something in that final Deathly Hallows, and it was okay. Nothing really happened. Maybe that's just because it's Harry Potter. He's not supposed to be as adept as Dumbledore, but I don't know, maybe I just expected too much, but definitely 5.
And I mean, the opening of 5 was crazy too. You have him dealing with Dementors in the human world.
Oh yeah,
it just started and did not stop and led him to the court case. It was just felt like it had the most stakes out of all of them, which is weird because you think that would be the last one, but I don't know, maybe because I wasn't even really spoiled, but I knew he made it. It's not like it was a huge problem in the last one.
Do you think it would have been different had we been watching these films as they were releasing and having the anticipation and the build up? Is this a victim of the Netflix binge model versus the series release, week to week versus, idea, same concept, right?
Mm-hmm. It's hard to say for certain, obviously, because that didn't happen. We can't compare it. But I will say one thing. I have a more fond recollection of this latest season of Stranger Things because of the slight pause they did between the last two episodes and the first chunk of the season. I distinctly remember watching those final few episodes before the break, and everybody was watching it all at once. And you're like, oh my gosh, what just happened? They revealed all this stuff about Vecna. Then we had to wait forever, right? We were waiting what's really happening, and then we got the last two episodes.
Gryffindor, right?
Yes.
Vecna, right? Isn't Vecna?
Wasn't he in one of the pictures?
Grindelwald, right?
Grindelwald. That's what I meant.
Yeah, he looked. I'm pretty sure that was him. But then everybody watched the last two episodes of Stranger Things, and it was this crazy, finale. And I remember watching it with Tristan. We were, anticipating it and all that. It was
this
great.
Before or after you slit your finger up?
This was before. This was pre-thumb slice. But that did have an effect. I think I more fondly remember that because there was the anticipation of what's happening, and we didn't have that for this movie. Any of the movies, especially the last, the Deathly Hallows. It's similar to Infinity War Endgame. We compared those two a lot to these movies just because you had this big climax cliffhanger. What happens? You have to wait a year for the resolution. Same idea with Deathly Hallows Part 1 and 2, except we waited 30 minutes to pop some more popcorn. And
that's all true. Run to Taco Bell.
Right. Yeah. So I definitely do think that had an effect.
What do you think, BB Nick?
Yeah, I do think that not waiting for the releases did have an effect. Just that's how it goes. I mean, you don't have the anticipation of wondering and the theorizing. Well, not that you even really can theorize about these movies. There were books, so everybody knew what was going to happen
that's
already.
That's a good point.
And it's sort of a testament to the not the quality of the franchise, but just how it feels. Lord of the Rings. Sammy and I didn't watch them when they released. That's just, we were too young. I mean, the first one came out when Sammy was born. Right. So he didn't watch them in theaters. I surely didn't. I wasn't a thought at that point.
They really did come out kind of in the same time frame.
They
roughly,
did. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so Sammy and I watched them way later, after release. And we still
watched them decently young, too, from what I can recall.
We still think that they're amazing.
That's probably because I was into those, though.
That's true.
That's true. That could have an effect. But we didn't have the anticipation of waiting between Fellowship of the Ring and Two Towers, or the insane anticipation I can imagine between Two Towers and Return of the King, even though everybody knew what was going to happen if you read the books. And it's still an amazing series. This one, it feels okay. And maybe it relied some on that anticipation factor more than Lord of the Rings did. And so it's overall a testament to how well these movies did compared to Lord of the Rings. They did a great job at making you want to know what was next, but honestly, I could have waited at that point.
One thing that is different between Harry Potter and this, and again, this could go to we didn't grow up on it, but I had a hard time really connecting to any of the characters in an emotional way.
I connected to two of the characters.
Who?
Sirius Black. Loved it.
Well, you just like the actor.
Yeah, he's a great actor. And Dobby. And Dobby was in for 5 minutes in the entire franchise. Come on.
Dobby was great. I love Dobby. But, the main cast of characters, I had a real hard time really connecting to them. Maybe that's because I've aged out. I'm not in that, middle school, high school age to where I can, I know what they're going through. I can really project myself into those characters. That could be part of it. But I don't know why else I may not be able to relate to it. But with Samwise and Frodo, I guess I have zero relation to them. They're hobbits and, they have nothing in common with me except they're people, But somehow they have such an emotional impact. Their story has such an emotional impact that pretty much every time I rewatch that series, and Nathan can attest to it too, every single time, there are at least 3 moments that, like clockwork in Return of the King, I tear up every time I see those scenes. And I just don't see any of that happening in Harry Potter.
I didn't
for
even
me.
think about tearing up for these movies.
No.
So, start with you, Sam. What do you think the Harry Potter story in these 8 movies, at least? What do you think the Harry Potter story is really all about?
Well, it's a
Like, what's the big theme?
it's a typical coming of age story. Finding yourself really, in some ways, I'm sure for a lot of kids, it was oh man, I can't wait to get out from underneath the thumb of my parents. Because the first 2 or 3 books or movies in this case were all about how it started off with his horrible
Bad
home
experience,
life.
right?
Obviously Nate and I can't attest to that.
That's awesome.
But that I'm sure was
That
it
wasn't
was
a cry for help, by the way. He was being sincere.
I was being sincere. But I'm sure that was a form of escape for a lot of kids who felt like they were, they felt like Harry
Wanted to
Potter
live in
or
that
whatever.
fantasy.
But also, it is fantasy for a reason. It's an escape from reality. And, these kids, they have to go to school every day, and schools, can be boring, obviously.
But not when you're-
imagine if you go to a magic school where your classes are potions and defense against the dark arts, even though every single professor was a bad guy.
Except
every
for
single.
Remus.
That's
Remus
true.
wasn't,
but
except
he kind of was.
He kind of was. Yeah.
But you get my point. It was just a way for what in my mind, a way for kids to escape from the monotony of their lives at the time, school age woes, I guess. But it has the typical, hero's journey story, Arthurian legend, where there's this chosen one who's destined to defeat the evil one who's going to come back, and there's something special and different about him. There's a prophecy, all of those typical,
the mentor,
the
all of
mentor,
that,
the
fellowship.
special object that he has to use to defeat him, like the magic wand, the Elder Wand. Thank you. All of those really specific Arthurian legends are still woven into the story because most of the best stories have that formula, but the packaging around it, I think, is more geared towards. I mean, it is a kid's book series, an escape from, a kid's life.
What do you think, Nate?
I mean, you had 4 answers in that just covered all of the bases. But no, I do think it's about fulfilling destiny and purpose and fate. Really, fate seemed to be a big deal.
That's true.
In this, his fate was decided from the moment that Voldemort cursed him when he was a child and his parents died, and everything from then on, he was the chosen one to defeat Voldemort, and he had to sacrifice himself, and all of that was kind of set in stone. And really, I feel like that's what it was mainly about. Yes, you had the escape from normal life, and that's really what media always has been about. It's an escape for people. But other than that, that was something else I struggled with this series. I didn't really find many where's the purpose of this other than just to go through the story? What was it all about other than just he has to defeat Voldemort and that's his goal, and he has to fulfill his purpose as the chosen one, and that's really all I got from it. And that's not a problem. It was a fun story, but I couldn't find much else from it.
I just still struggle with what was the big deal. Why?
Right.
Why
I never
was
felt like there were many
Voldemort-
stakes.
Why was Voldemort trying to take over Hogwarts? How does this impact the bigger world outside of the magic world?
Maybe that's explained in the books. Maybe that'll be explained in the remake series that they're going to be doing on HBO Max or Max. Sorry.
Yeah, Max.
Who knows?
Yeah, no, I agree. The stakes felt lower in these movies. I mean, obviously the Muggle world was under attack. They really kind of showed that in that 5th movie, the bridges collapsing and stuff like that. But there never really felt like there were many stakes. Why is he so fixated on high school? Why can't he just go take over the Muggle
what
world?
was his purpose?
Right.
We never really found out why. Maybe because I didn't notice. But I was.
It's like he had a bad experience at Hogwarts as a teenager, as a student, and he decided he just was going to keep taking revenge against Dumbledore and Hogwarts as a result.
Yeah. No, I get that. But with Sauron, the stakes were clear from the beginning. The fate of the world is at stake here. Don't mess up, and it's shown throughout the movies why this is such an important thing.
Yeah, and I don't want to, people listening that are huge fans. I mean, we know some of our closest friends in the world are huge Harry Potter fans.
Right.
With it, and I know that they're going to listen to this and they're going to be like,
"You hated the movie?" No,
we binge watched 8 movies over the course of about 3 or 4 weeks, and we watched like 5 of them or 4 of them over the course of one weekend.
Yeah, we watched them a lot.
We watched a lot, and
we enjoyed them,
and we enjoyed these movies.
Yeah. I'm going to go back to Hogwarts and all that at Universal with a completely different.
I'm going to enjoy it more.
I'm probably going to want to buy some chocolate frogs or Butterbeer.
Like
I mean, there were even a few points where I was like, it would be kind of cool to have a wand.
Yeah.
Little moments
like the Elder Wand would be cool to have because it just looks cool.
It's cool.
But staffs are cooler.
The reality is this series just does not have the emotional connection to us as it does to other people. And, like your youth pastor, Scott, and Stuart, who we talk about on the show all the time.
Even Tristan.
And Stuart's son, Jay. When you got Jay a wand when we were at
Death Eater wand.
And he was
over the moon excited,
losing his mind excited about it. Tristan, your best friend, is a huge Harry Potter fan.
Loves the movies,
with it. And we're not like trying to be like negative towards why do people like this series. That's not what we're trying to do with it. We're just trying to help you understand where we come from after having watched it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we experience this with people all the time and their thoughts on Star Wars.
Yes.
A lot of people don't like Lord of the Rings.
They just don't get it. Your mother, my wife, doesn't get Star Wars.
Or Lord of the Rings.
Or Lord of the Rings.
Which is a shame.
We live that experience every single day in this house.
And we're fine.
She gets Marvel, though, so we're okay.
I guess so, yeah, sometimes.
Just different stories speak to different people in different ways.
That's right.
And we can
if you don't
that.
like Lord of the Rings, then you're crazy.
No, that's right.
That's how it goes. No, I'm kidding.
So real quick, Sam, for you, where does this fantasy series rank with others? Like, obviously, Lord of the Rings is at the top for you. But with like Narnia and
Game of Thrones.
Well, you ever watched Game of Thrones? I'm trying to think of other series that
There's
are
gotta be
similar to
others.
it.
I can't think of any off the top of my head.
Like fantasy series, I can't think of anything.
Yeah. Anyway, where does this rank?
What's your 1, 2, 3?
Yeah, my 1, 2, 3 of the 3 that we mentioned here is definitely Lord of the Rings at top. That's a given. I would go Narnia, and there's probably 2 reasons for that. One, I grew up on it. I can't watch those movies when they came out. And 2, it does have a very clear Christian story behind it. At least the first book.
The other ones kind of have.
They do. But I'm sure those have an effect. I have not watched the whole series in a while, I'll be honest. It's been a while since I've rewatched those. I'd be curious to see how they rank after a rewatch, but that would be my second, with Harry Potter in third. But that doesn't mean I didn't like it.
Nate?
No.
Yeah, I'd have to go Lord of the Rings and then Narnia and Harry Potter. Just specifically Narnia, because when I think fantasy, I honestly don't think modern world. Because I think I think medieval. I think that times, the big armies fighting each other and all that stuff. I don't think of cars. I don't think of cities. I don't think of real worlds changing into these fantasy worlds. That just isn't how I feel when I think of fantasy novels. And so Narnia and Lord of the Rings did both of that very well and have both of those aspects. And I'm not saying it was a bad aspect for Harry Potter. It set it apart, and I enjoyed the uniqueness of it. But it doesn't feel as much of a fantasy thing as other ones do.
Well, and I wonder if we would have more connection to the real world aspects of Harry Potter if we grew up in London or something. Because a lot of those real world aspects were also celebrations of England and London and that culture and that world, you know, the tea time and the trains and things like that. It was very the double-decker buses that are magic and the brownstones, the apartments, all of that was very much an homage to that world, which we can't connect to because we grew up in Colorado and Alabama, you know. So I wonder if that would have an effect too.
I am your father.
As much as we shared reasons why for us, the Harry Potter films just don't measure up to what we love from other franchises like The Lord of the Rings and Star Wars, there really are some interesting elements to the wizarding world. And my favorite is the character of Severus Snape. I started the first film completely convinced that he was the bad guy, like potentially even an avatar of Voldemort. Of course, we learned later that he was a bad guy that had found the error in his ways and turned to find redemption. But throughout the rest of the series, we're led down a path that causes us to more than doubt. Snape goes on to betray Dumbledore and Harry and then side with he who shall not be named. But when that moment happened, I never bought into it. Here's why. Dumbledore trusted him completely. He knew that Snape's change was sincere. I know we later learned that Dumbledore and Snape were secretly conspiring together to fool everyone. But the most important lesson from his story is the importance of having someone in your life that truly believes in and trusts you. I never doubted Snape because Dumbledore never doubted Snape. I hope each of us have someone in our lives that believes in us that much. Thank you so much for listening to this week's show. I want to remind you that there are a lot of other shows you heard earlier. At the very opening to the episode, you heard about Fangirling Over Jesus with Ashley Cox. Make sure you check out her show tomorrow. But we have shows releasing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and now Friday. So obviously Wednesday, Fangirling Over Jesus with Ashley Cox. This Thursday will be the guys from The Reverend and the Reprobate. And on Friday, a new show being added to the lineup, Speaking Nerdy, which is hilarious, by the way, guys. You need to check that out. And then, of course, on Monday, the week starts off with the Christian Nerds Unite podcast, and then we come out every Tuesday. Make sure you follow our social medias, Christian Nerd HQ. Follow the podcast, where all of these podcasts, wherever you can download them. They're amazing. It's great, nerdy fun with a little bit of a kind of a bigger story twist tied into it. Make sure you give us a rating and review on all of the different podcast apps that you listen to us on. Follow us on our socials. Share the show. And of course,
may the force be with you always.
This party's over.
I like that Wookiee.
Don't get technical with me.